We're kicking off with Raw, and we were hardly 15 minutes into the show when the Wyatt Sicks decided to make their second appearance as a collective group. Jey Uso made his way to the ring with the Fireflies and cut a promo about this weekend's Money in the Bank ladder match before being interrupted by Chad Gable. Gable said he was a miracle for surviving the Wyatt Sicks attack, and this earned the Olympian a loud "You suck" chant in response. Like Jey, Gable has qualified for the men's ladder match, and Chad argued that the faction should target Jey for abandoning his own family and then stealing Bray's Fireflies. This was in reference to the fans waving their phones for Jey's entrance, something we saw for years with Wyatt, and as Jey was responding, Gable attacked him. Main event Jey was able to fight back and hit a super kick on Chad, who rolled out of the way of an attempted splash, and for a moment, Gable thought he was safe. That was until the Wyatt Sicks music started playing, and Gable looked petrified as smoke filled the ring, as did holy chants from the fans in the arena. Jey Uso disappeared, and Gable decided to exit through the crowd, but as he walked, he went past members of the Wyatt Sicks with bright lights behind them before exiting. Interestingly, neither Uncle Howdy nor Nikki Cross were seen near Chad, but Cross did make an eerie appearance as she emerged again to hand Michael Cole another VHS tape. Cole seemed reluctant to accept the tape, and while Chad Gable was able to leave this latest encounter with the faction unscathed, we only mean physically. This was a great segment to kick off the show as it focused on the ladder match, teased a potential rivalry in Uso and Gable, and gave us the latest from the Wyatt Sicks. But what did you think of the segment? Let us know down in the comments below. In an off-air moment during a commercial break, Jey re-emerged and asked, "They gone yet?" before hyping up the Boston crowd for Raw and sharing in a yeet. As for Nikki Cross, she was caught by WWE fans sliding under the ring after giving Michael Cole another videotape, giving another sense of mystery to the Wyatt Sicks. Later in the show, the latest videotape between Uncle Howdy and Bo Dallas revealed that the latter had been talking to himself the entire time. When asked if he thinks he's special, Bo said, "We're the ones everyone wanted to forget about. We made them notice us," and suggested some people deserve to be forgotten. "There you are," Howdy said in response, realizing he'd exposed the real Bo Dallas to the world, and the grainy, warped video revealed Dallas and Howdy are one and the same. Of course, this is hardly a secret to those who have been following WWE's production of the character, but the execution of this reveal was still very compelling. Bo also told, "They weren't chosen, just willing. Clay in the hands of the potter, died to the flesh to become something beautiful. They've become a family. We've become a family. Even now there's false prophets parading, belittling their own family for their own gain. They must pay for their sins. False prophets belittling their family for their own gain." That line stood out from the entire Wyatt Sicks segment. It explained the group's motivation and their values. Bo told himself that family is the most important thing and that this group is now a family. More importantly, they bonded as family after getting tossed aside. That makes it more obvious why they're targeting Chad Gable and why Chad's words to Otis and Jey Uso ring hollow. The Wyatts could never target Otis because he didn't discard his family. Jey didn't either, as he fought to keep his family but eventually left because he was the victim. If you want to talk about talent who have gone against their family, then Seth Rollins or Dominik Mysterio could soon be a victim of the Wyatt Sicks, or perhaps even Solo Sikoa's new bloodline. Fans also saw the return of the Pluto symbol, which, like the Nightbird symbol, had not been seen since the QR codes, and the group made their official debut. The Pluto symbol in astrology is connected to the idea of massive changes and transformations, and its inclusion may suggest that even more changes are coming. Does it mean that Nightbird's presence indicates Alexa Bliss's return? There are rumors that suggest Alexa Bliss would be the one joining in as Lilith and would don the role of co-leader, and if that indeed happens, that wouldn't be a good decision as it would hinder the push of the other members, but judging by Howdy's previous statements, he clearly stated that he has adopted a flock of lost sheep that was meandering in the WWE. This statement does not apply to Alexa Bliss though, as she has achieved several storied accomplishments so far in WWE. What are your thoughts on this week's Wyatt Sicks segment? And are these indications of Alexa Bliss joining the faction? Sound off in the comments below. Raw also saw Chad Gable once again try to persuade Otis to join him back, and were seen in a backstage segment, but eagle-eyed fans noticed Mercy the Buzzard lurking in the background. We mentioned last week that Stephanie McMahon was spotted at SmackDown, and though she doesn't have an official role with WWE, McMahon was back for this week's Raw. In fan photos from the show, McMahon could be seen watching the show with her and Triple H's daughters, and were seemingly having a blast at the show in Boston. WWE has no plans for her official return, but fans were delighted to see Stephanie McMahon in attendance, and perhaps we'll see more of her soon. Stephanie isn't the only McMahon to have grabbed headlines as of late, as in recent days, a lot has been said about Shane McMahon possibly joining AEW. McMahon has reportedly brought up the matter to talent, but it's been said that this was not a hard pitch, and he's now been spotted with a top elite wrestler. PW Insider reported that Mercedes Mone was seen speaking to McMahon at the airport in Queens, New York, but her presence at this particular airport shouldn't be a surprise. With their latest pay-per-view having taken place in the New York City metropolitan area, the AEW roster spent the weekend traveling through LaGuardia Airport, so it was always possible she'd bump into a familiar face. Although the pair were seen speaking together, there was no word on what they were discussing, but this meetup made for a very interesting situation for them both. Tensions persisted in the Judgment Day on Raw, as backstage, Damian Priest caught Dominik Mysterio in a lie about speaking to Rhea Ripley. Priest revealed that he'd already spoken to Rhea and clarified that Dominik had not spoken to her, and after being confronted, Mysterio said he'd resolve matters with Ripley. Dom entered the Judgment Day's base only to find Liv waiting for him, and the mind games continued before she left the lair. While Priest addressed the group's Liv Morgan problem, Finn Balor wanted to focus on a comment last week where Priest stated the group needed him more than he needed them. Balor told the world champion that the real issue is you, and added that since he became world heavyweight champion at WrestleMania 40, that Priest had changed. The group have several other problems, with Liv being the obvious one, and it remains to be seen how the Liv Morgan story will shape up with Dominik Mysterio at the center of it all. Just days ahead of Money in the Bank, Seth Rollins was in Boston to speak of the show in Toronto, where he'll be in a world title match for the first time in close to 3 months. Finn Balor came out to confront Rollins, who said that the Irishman was jealous because Damian Priest won the World Heavyweight Championship, while Balor didn't. Priest himself then emerged, and though he didn't ask Finn to attack Rollins, Balor blindsided the Architect, and Damian pulled him away, further showcasing the rift between them. The segment ended with the Archer of Infamy getting the last laugh by taking out the Visionary with a huge chokeslam. Things seemed fine after the attack, but Damian Priest reiterated that he wants zero interference when he faces Rollins at Money in the Bank. There is a real power struggle between Priest and Balor, one that could end with Balor betraying his friend and former tag team partner. The outcome to this week's title match is anything but obvious, considering the notion of Rollins never challenging for the title seems impossible. How do you think the match at Money in the Bank is going to end? Do you think Balor and team would cost Priest the title and turn Priest babyface as a result? Sound off in the comments below. Liv Morgan defended her Women's World Championship on Raw, and her title defense was a successful one thanks to Dominik Mysterio. Since returning from injury following WrestleMania 40, Morgan has been on a revenge tour that saw her win the title at King and Queen of the Ring from Becky Lynch. On that night, Dominik accidentally aided Morgan's quest, and Liv has also been hell-bent on taking Dirty Dom away from Rhea Ripley as part of the aforementioned revenge tour. Morgan has inserted herself in Judgment Day business when she helped Finn Balor and JD McDonough win the tag titles last week, and has flirted and kissed Mysterio in the past. This hasn't set well with Damian Priest, who has insisted on Dominik handling Liv for quite some time now, and that all came to a head with her title match against Zelina Vega. Mid-match, Dominik came to ringside, which brought out Rey Mysterio, who shoved Dominik to the ground, causing Liv to kick the beloved Hall of Famer. Vega, who fans noticed had been using some moves of her husband Malachi Black, then hit a 619 on Morgan, but that and a DDT couldn't get the job done. Dominik then grabbed a steel chair and passed it to Vega in the ring, but Vega hit him in the face with the chair instead, which allowed Morgan to hit the Oblivion for the win. This finish played on Morgan's victory over Becky Lynch, as she also benefited from a steel chair mishap courtesy of Dominik in Saudi Arabia. It was a clever way to book more of the same without settling into repetitiveness, and the match showed Vega off to be a legitimate contender. Zelina held her own against the Women's World Champion, and this match only demonstrated why her current screen time is nowhere near enough what it should be. Thirdly, it put more heat on Rey vs. Dom for later in the night, a legitimate main event rematch of their WrestleMania 39 with ongoing storyline implications. Morgan was ecstatic that her reign will continue and on Twitter dedicated the win and all her future wins to "My Daddy Dominik." While the champion was pleased after the win, Dominik Mysterio was clearly upset over the result, and it remains to be seen what this means for Liv and the Judgment Day. Now, a lot was said on Raw about Rhea Ripley, despite her not being at the show, as fans remain curious as to when they can expect her back in the ring. It was recently reported that fans would not be seeing Ripley at SummerSlam, and that nothing was planned for her, but an update has since come out. Fightful Select reports that according to WWE sources, things have been constructed so that Ripley can slide in and return to programming whenever she's ready. This has been done so that Ripley can return, even if she's not able to wrestle due to her injury, but can do plenty of on-screen character work. As for SummerSlam, it's not known for sure now if she'll return for the show, but the big takeaway from this report is that the creative has been set up to allow for her comeback. Ripley is one of WWE's most popular stars, but has been missing for some time, and the company is ready for her return, whenever that may be. At Forbidden Door, Will Ospreay failed to capture the AEW World title, and after the show went off the air, his frustrations got the better of him. As seen in footage shared online, Ospreay was upset and grappled with his emotions while Kyle Fletcher tried to encourage him as he made his way to the back. In an AEW YouTube video, Ospreay was shown looking dejected, and as the cameraman got too close, Will snapped and demanded he get out of his way. Ospreay has vowed to be AEW World Champion, but this loss is a huge setback for him, and it remains to be seen when his big win happens, if it ever comes. At Money in the Bank, Sami Zayn will defend his Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker in perhaps the toughest challenge of his title reign to date. Zayn has found himself face-to-face with the most unstoppable force in WWE today, and this week's Raw gave the advantage to the challenger. After suggesting Breaker has not done his homework if he does not know Zayn and what he has accomplished, the Intercontinental Champion found himself on the receiving end of a brutal spear. To his credit, Zayn leapfrogged Breaker's first attempt at a social media dominating spear, which sent the second-generation superstar into the steel steps. The speed Braun hit those steps was astonishing and must have hurt like hell, but thankfully he has shoulder muscles on top of shoulder muscles, which helped absorb the damage. Breaker rebounded and ended Zayn's night with a second spear before standing tall to close out the short, sweet segment that highlighted the threat Sami has in Toronto. Breaker is an unstoppable force who has made fools of anyone who dares to step to him, and will absolutely do the same to the Intercontinental Champion if necessary. After weeks of attempting to lure Xavier Woods away from his New Day tag team partner Kofi Kingston, Karrion Kross battled Woods in Raw's opening contest. Kross utilized his strength to dominate the majority of the bout, and at one point caught Woods mid-flight with a forearm, but Woods recovered and caught Kross with a roll-up. Post-match, Kross and the Final Testament attacked Woods and Kofi, leaving them lying in the ring to close out the segment after a solid enough match and post-match attack. With that said, it still feels like this program is struggling to capture the attention of fans as Kross and Co. continue to struggle to connect with the audience. Perhaps it's because the group is still largely undefined, as we still have no idea what the Final Testament is, why they're a thing, and what is their endgame. Those are questions that need addressed sooner rather than later if there is any chance of salvaging a faction that probably should be further along than it is. The fact that the group remains incapable of stringing together wins doesn't do them any favors, as this supposedly dominant stable once again lost to a roll-up on Raw. The fact that the commentary team were questioning Woods' singles accomplishments, suggesting he only succeeds as a tag team wrestler, also didn't help matters. Let's not forget that he is a former King of the Ring, an accolade that this year earned Gunther a world title match, and some respect should be put on his name. But what do you make of this? Do you care about the Final Testament? What did you make of commentary's comments on Xavier Woods? Sound off in the comments. Arguably the best family rivalry in wrestling wrote its latest chapter on Raw, as Rey Mysterio bested his son Dominik thanks to incessant interference from Liv Morgan and Zelina Vega. The match, like earlier in the show, played on a memorable spot between the champion and Dominik, which saw Mysterio land on top of Morgan as she had him a few weeks back. From there, Vega fought Morgan, and back inside, Rey delivered the West Coast pop for the win, leaving Morgan to implore Dominik not to be mad, saying, "I'll make it better." Dominik was fuming after the match, and this bout once again served to remind fans just how much the younger Mysterio has grown as a performer. Even compared to last year's WrestleMania, when Dom was hitting his stride as a villain, he has grown immensely, and it can't be stated enough. As for the elder Mysterio, the fact that Rey is out having these matches against talent literally young enough to be his son is a testament to his excellence in the ring. At this point, Rey needs to be in the conversation for the GOAT alongside the likes of Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Terry Funk, and his friend and rival Eddie Guerrero. This match worked on every level, and it feels like a mixed tag pitting Dom and Liv against Rey and Zelina isn't out of the question for Money in the Bank. If it waits until next week's show or another time thereafter, so be it, but it feels like a perfect time to go that route based on what we saw on this week's Raw. The AEW locker room is full of polarizing stars, from heels to baby faces. One former fan favorite turned top bad guy recently captured a championship and is now making a divisive allegation against his colleagues. All Elite Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling presented the third annual Forbidden Door pay-per-view on Sunday, and the vacant TNT title was up for grabs in a 6-man ladder match. Jack Perry secured the win, defeating Mark Briscoe, Konosuke Takeshita, El Phantasmo, Leo Rush, and Dante Martin. The scapegoat has now declared that he is the future of AEW and the face of the network, presumably Warner Bros. Discovery. In a post-show promo, the 27-year-old also accused half of his co-workers of not wanting him around. He said, "I've been back here 2 months, and in that time I joined the Elite. I hit Tony Khan, I got rid of Kenny Omega, I pinned Bryan Danielson, and now I'm the TNT champion. Get a good shot of that belt right there. You know what that says? That says that I'm the future. It says that I'm the face of this network, even though like half the guys in these locker rooms, they probably don't even want me here. Well, guess what?" Spits on and raises the belt. "I ain't going anywhere." How would you perceive Perry as a TNT champion? What do you think of Perry's comments? Do you think he is on track to becoming one of the biggest stars in wrestling? Sound off in the comments below. A triple threat match brought together Zoe Stark, Dakota Kai, and Ivy Nile with a spot in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match hanging in the balance. All three women are looking to elevate their careers, something the ladder match makes a real possibility, and this was a stellar showdown between three underrated talents. A mixture of blows and high-impact moves littered the match, and in the closing moments, Damage Control's Kairi Sane came out, but was neutralized by Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. This gave Zoe Stark a chance to hit her finisher on Dakota Kai and emerge victorious, earning herself a spot in the ladder match in Toronto. Stark winning almost guarantees a feat of athleticism Saturday night, which is always welcome, but it would be really nice to see the creative team do more with her. WWE's creative has not done nearly enough to elevate the talented Stark, which many assumed was a given when she partnered with Trish Stratus just 1 year ago. Stark will join Io Sky, Lyra Valkyria, Chelsea Green, Tiffany Stratton, and Naomi in the quest for the coveted briefcase that could alter their careers and take it to the next level. On Raw, Michael Cole gave an emotional message to Pat McAfee after the latter missed the show as he and his family continue to process the death of his father-in-law. Cole announced McAfee will be back on commentary for next week's Raw, meaning he'll likely miss Money in the Bank, though this was not confirmed. Whenever Pat returns, his priority is his family, and we're wishing him and his family the very best at this sad time. Last week, Dijak shared that he would be leaving WWE after the company made little to no effort to sign him to a new contract, and now he's found work outside the company. The New England Pro Wrestling Academy took to Twitter to share that Dijak is now part of their training staff for people who want to learn to be a pro wrestler. With years of experience in and out of WWE, Dijak has a lot to teach and is now looking to put those skills to good use in honing the wrestlers of tomorrow. On Raw, Ludwig Kaiser was in a video package and acknowledged reports he'd suffered a broken rib by being speared by Braun Breaker on last week's show. Despite this setback, Kaiser remained confident to continue his ascent to the top once he returns to Raw, but there's no word on when he'll be back in the ring. Kaiser was scheduled to participate in the Money in the Bank qualifier match this week before being replaced by Ilya Dragunov, and we're wishing him a speedy recovery. Dragunov was part of a triple threat qualifier alongside Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, so fans knew we'd be in for a banger from the moment the bout was announced. Sure enough, the three didn't disappoint in this war of attrition, as they beat the hell out of each other in the name of a career-altering opportunity in Toronto. The match progressed nicely until McIntyre deposited Dragunov on the floor, then teed off with Sheamus in the ring as the two beat the hell out of each other. McIntyre was stunned by a jumping knee, but managed to shake it off and flatten Sheamus with a Claymore to get the win and the final spot in the men's ladder match. Now the Scottish Warrior heads to Money in the Bank, where he vows to win the titular match and leave as world champion after previously being cashed in on twice. Whether he does win the match and if CM Punk makes his presence felt remains to be seen, but this was a fantastic three-man match. The only downside is that we wish cable and broadcast TV would stop censoring everything, as the result makes a nearly impossible to watch show. Audio dropping out and screens going black do not make for a pleasant viewing experience, and this time it was the holy chants in Boston that were censored. Still, this match was great, and even in defeat, Dragunov having opportunities against the likes of Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, and Jey Uso bode well for his future. It says a ton about WWE's view of him and where they see him going one day, and he was protected in defeat in the match that went McIntyre's way. And that was Raw. What did you think of the show? Let us know below, and as always, thanks for watching.